Okay, let's look at this post on Wowhead that you mentioned about Mythic Plus. That's interesting. Okay.
You've got mail.
Massive Mythic Plus changes in Season 2. Challengers' peril effects moved to 12s. Gilded Crest available from 7s. Some new outfits. Okay. Gilded Crest available from 7s, which should be very accessible, and this makes, I think this makes sense. Hero Track available from 6. Mythic 0 drops champion gear. Alright, so basically this is to help you feel like the mythic dungeons that you need to do after you've been gearing in delves, like you'll be able to start at lower levels and not feel like shit about doing that because you're gonna have better gear coming out of those. So that way you'll be able to more naturally progress through Mythic Plus and have it not feel like, oh, well, I've already geared so much in delves that I really need to do super high Mythic Plus for it to be worth it for me gear-wise, but I'm not ready for those, and it kind of ruined the process. So I think that these are changes that are going to be really, really good for players like myself and more casual players. It's good. And I think at the same time, it's going to help preserve the integrity of the higher Mythic Plus dungeon experience so that you pull people into this pushing higher keys that are more interested in that, right? Interested in the Mythic Plus journey. I think this is good. Tyrannical and Fortified moved to level 7 and level 10. And Challenger's Peril removed. Guile at plus 12 includes the effects of Challenger's Peril instead of additional stats. Okay, let's read the post. Only took a whole season of effing around. Yes! True. Yes, that is correct. That's how they do things. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, to revert everything back to Dragonflight Season 3 state. 0 to 6 are like delves with more crests now, so that's a fair trade-off to the lock-in moment. Yes. Are we talking about raids? I've been debating going into them when Season 2 starts. I've been scared to try it so far. We're talking about Mythic Plus dungeons, which is something I didn't do a lot of in Season 1, but I would like to do more of with the guild in Season 2. So this would be a good time to hop in and maybe try some of those in a safe and like chill environment where no one's going to be yelling at you and we're all learning together. If you ever want to do those with the guild. The guild setting is the way to do Mythic Plus. It is. Trying to do this with random people, it's possible, but you're going to have to prepare yourself because, you know, it's randoms and some of them are pretty mean and nasty. So guild really solves that issue completely. I personally feel like I can't learn effectively if I am with people who I feel like are about to fly off the handle. Like, I feel like I just can't learn in that environment. And Mythic Plus and progression in general is all about fostering an environment where you feel you can learn, an environment of like education and learning and patience. That's what it's about. And so I really don't, I very much do not agree with this attitude some people have, that being tough and being mean and being like pissed off and putting super pressure on people, like that's somehow supposed to help them improve. And maybe it does out of like fear of failure, but I think in the long term, this is not a good strategy. It's better to just be patient with people and help them learn. That's really the philosophy that I have and that people who are in our guild helping others with Mythic Plus have. how can you learn if you're stressed about how somebody is, like, you're not thinking about the game at that point. You think about what's happening to you, okay? There's already a lot going on. We're rolling out some changes to Mythic Plus with the release of War Within Season 2 and wanted to share a few insights on what you can expect to see when those changes arrive on the PTR. Over the course of the War Within Season 1, the dev team received extensive feedback on Mythic Dungeons, much of which revolved around frustrations, especially in trying to progress through the system, primarily in pugs groups. Yes. Correct. Common areas of criticism have included the sense that players were faced with too many mechanics at once, that failure was too punishing, that rewards felt insufficient for the challenge and effort required. Yes, compared to Delves especially. It felt wrong, like it felt like something was broken. And that it could be hard for many players to find groups as the community gravitated toward meta specs to help cope with these difficulties. Well, this always has been. It's always been like that. That's probably never gonna change. We have already approached our season 2. I like how they put meta in quotes also. Meta. As if that's not real. So-called meta. Come on. We've already approached our Season 2 dungeon rollout on the PTR and ongoing tuning with an eye towards addressing mechanical issues. Cast times on critical enemy spells have been significantly increased. Damage spikes reduced in magnitude or given better telegraphs. Overall number of threats in an average pack of enemies has been reduced, and more. I like what I'm hearing. It sounds like it's going to be the best season to jump in as a newer player of 2 Mythic Plus. We also made some improvements to rewards, especially reducing the penalty of failing to finish a dungeon within the timer in the Siren Isle content update, but we understood that there was still more to do to fully address the feedback we've been hearing. Now, as we approach our second season, we have a chance to make some broader changes to the structure of Mythic Dungeon progression. A factor that we see as an underlying cause of many of the cited issues is the lack of smooth and healthy difficulty/reward progression in the current system. Rewards are an essential part of that picture. Yes, this is it. Man, this is so nice. It is nice to feel like what I've been saying and feeling is also problems that the developers are noticing and listening to. And seeing, because like it's obvious. I feel like this is the kind of back and forth that you need with developers. Okay, like they need to actually address the problems that there are. The introduction of Delves significantly changed the in-game reward ecosystem. Players who were accustomed to doing M+ and past expansions may have geared up in Delves at the start of War Within Season 1, and then looked at the M+ reward track and found few or no rewards worth their time below the Mythic 7 level or so. Yep. Yes, that was me. Lots of players would enter the system at Mythic 7 since they didn't need more champion gear, and Mythic 7 was the first level to drop hero track items from each run. However, often these players frankly lacked the dungeon experience required to succeed at that level. This is what I've been saying. This is what I've been saying for all Season 1. Dealing with a 77% bonus to enemy health and damage, on top of Challenger's Peril, making deaths more costly. If you don't know, Challenger's Peril is the affix that will increase the, like, by a lot the time, like, it will reduce the time that you have to clear. It increases the penalty on the timer when you die. Does that make sense? I explained shittily. Making deaths, basically the deaths are more costly. Was never designed to be an environment in which to learn mechanics for the first time. Thank you. And yet many players ended up doing just that. Dude, can we talk about Mists of Tyrannuside? That +7, +8, +9. People who just geared up with Delves have not been in Tyrna Scythe since Shadowlands. That's me. And suddenly, we have this boss that's like, think fast! Throws the volleyball at you and you die. Like, you have less than a second to notice that you're about to be murdered by this fairy. Man, it was so hard because you're not meant to learn that mechanic for the first time plus 8. You're supposed to learn it earlier and then practice. You practice it, you're good at it. Now you can move on. Okay, that's the beauty of the Mythic Plus progression. But instead, we just locked in, man. I'm proud of y'all. Because a lot of us just were like, well, we gotta lock in. We screw the timer. This heavily impacted success rates. Yes. Led to a sense of inconsistency from group to group, and made many players more wary and more selective in filling groups for their keys. What I really appreciate is they noticed the problem of toxicity in Mythic Plus and realized it's not just a factor of people are assholes. There are elements with Mythic Plus that lead to frustration, which causes people to be more likely to be an asshole. Now, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but you can alleviate frustrations with your design choices to maybe reduce the number of times that people are going to have a reason to be toxic to each other. You know, this is addressing root causes of problems. Meanwhile, keys in the 2 to 6 range had a shallow applicant pool, especially past the first few weeks of the season. It just wasn't worth it. This meant that even players who tried to start at a lower difficulty level in order to build the experience to succeed at 7+ keys also often had a hard time finding and forming groups, experiencing many of the same frustrations. Yes, exactly. So if you're thinking, well, maybe I do need to practice at the lower key, it was hard to find the people. Can't even form the group for it. Who wants to do that? We're decked out in delve gear. Looking ahead to Season 2, our aim is to make the Mythic Dungeon system more rewarding from the outset and smooth out the difficulty progression so that each step feels approachable. I also appreciate them thinking about how to make it worth your time. I appreciate them saying that. They're realizing the mindset that I have as a loot goblin trying to approach content. I try to approach content thinking to myself, what can I get out of that content today? Like, what kind of gear upgrade can I get? What kind of currency can I get that will make it worth my time doing the content? Not just because I should, right? To that end, we are making the following changes. Baseline Mythic 0 dungeons will now award champion track gear from each boss with weekly instance lockout. Health and damage of enemies in those dungeons is increased to reflect their improved rewards while keeping Mythic 0 an accessible point of entry for players beginning their Season 2 gearing journey. Nice. From Mythic 2 to 10, each new level will now increase the health and damage of enemies by 7%, down from the previous 10% per level scaling. Okay, so who thinks that this is going to be actually working on release? Who thinks they're gonna get the scaling right right out the gate with Season 2? Or are we gonna be guinea pig testing this and have some just crazy shit going on for the first couple weeks? They're messing around with the scaling, so be on your guard basically for the first, I don't know, 2 weeks. The Zalatath's bargain rotating affixes will move up from Mythic 2 to Mythic 4, leaving no affixes other than the existence of a timer at the 2 entry levels of the M+ system. Good. Good. I think this is good. Let people focus on, first, learning how to interrupt a cast. Okay. On the pack-a-bops. Once we got that down, then we can move into learning how to deal with Zalatath. one step at a time. So it's gonna feel really good as you make those steps through. The alternating cycle of Tyrannical and Fortified will move up from Mythic 4 to replace the Challenger's Peril Affix at Mythic 7. Good. With the other one continuing to take effect at Mythic 10. Makes sense. Mythic 12, instead of a 10% additional increase to enemy health, Xal'atath's Guile will now include the increased time or penalty for deaths that was formerly part of Challenger's Peril as a replacement for the rotating bargain affixes. While the mechanic could feel overly punishing for groups still learning and progressing towards gear rewards, a focus on clean execution remains appropriate for the upper echelons of the system. Yes. Gotta keep it hard. Keep it harder and more punishing at the higher levels. Removing the extra 10% stats should make the transition into the prestige tiers of the system feel like less of a wall. Nice. Okay, well, I don't need to read all of the rest of it, but in general, I'm really happy with what I've heard. I'll give you a link to this post, and I definitely feel seen. I feel like they have understood all the problems that I had as a newer player, for all practical purposes, in trying to approach the Mythic Plus season in War Within, having been very excited about Delves, and I still am. Like, I want to engage with Delves a lot, gear up a lot there, but then I wanted to move into Mythic Plus in a more natural and rewarding way that respects my time. And so I really like what I've heard here. But I do think that it might be a little broken at the start because it's Blizzard after all. Here is a link to the post. There you go. I'm happy with it. I'm pretty happy with it. We will see how it works out in Season 2. But I think it's going to be better than situation than Season 1. Is there an option to hide the timer? That thing itself freaks me out a little bit. I bet that there's an add-on that'll let you do it. I mean, I think you can do it with the edit UI by default. Yeah. So, what do you think about this post? Yeah, it's how it was in Season 1. It was basically, hey, get better. You shouldn't be in here, but you can't get groups at lower levels, so you can't get better. Exactly. So it was a bit of a catch-22 that people were running into with Season 1. But yeah, good.